Welcome back to Feeling Your Passion podcast. I've been watching too much Nine Club lately. Do you ever listen to Nine Club?
No.
It's what is it? The skateboard podcast.
Oh, okay.
And he always goes, we have a really special guest. And I keep wanting to say that. But this has been in the works for quite a while. I know we both have crazy schedules. I have Branden Steineckert here. For those of you who don't know, this is why I have a cheat sheet.
Okay.
You ready? I'm going to kind of put you on a little pedestal
I want to see what you got. You got my resume.
Okay, ready? For those guys who do not know, Branden is a founding member of The Used, 2 platinum, 1 gold record. Is that correct?
2 platinum, 2 gold.
2 gold for Used.
For the Used in the U.S.
Yeah,
we have platinum and gold worldwide.
All right.
Several countries.
Your first album with Rancid was Let the Dominoes Fall?
Correct.
Yep, okay. Landing 11th in Billboard.
Really?
Yeah. And
that's cool.
You might learn something here too. Honor Is All We Know, Troublemaker, and of course, congrats on the new album.
Thank you.
In the last month or so here. Welcome,
What's
Branden.
that one called?
Oh, dude. You can't do that to me.
Oh, no. See, it wasn't on your notes.
I've listened to it front to back numerous times.
I was literally asking because I was trying to think of what it was called.
Actually,
Tomorrow Never Comes.
There you go. There you go.
I was like having a brain fart for a second when you said that. I was like, hearing you name the records, I'm like, oh yeah, and which ones? Yeah. Okay. If you asked me to tell you the order, I could tell you the first one and the last one.
Right.
The other two, I don't remember which came first.
Yeah. But hell of a history you got, man. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
Some cool mutual friends here brought us together, and then you and I have been chatting for quite a few years now, and we finally made it happen.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's an honor to have you here since we're in my home.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you opening the doors. It's been really cool to see your place. I know you've been bouncing around for the last, well, you had a little break through COVID, but you've been on the go nonstop, so it's got to be nice to do something at home base for once.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like, when worlds collide and you get to do different things, and I rarely get to do stuff here at home, so yeah, it's cool. Appreciate it.
Right off the bat, though, I do have a question. I don't know if you've noticed this.
Okay.
So I'm on my Spotify all the time and looking at new releases. It's kind of like curated for me now, from what you listen to. Mm-hmm. And dude, there's this weird theme, and I'm curious the inspiration behind it. So the new Rancid album, Yellow, right? Mm-hmm. Metallica's new album, Yellow.
Oh.
Beartooth, you ever listen to Beartooth at all?
No, but I'm familiar.
Yellow. So they all came out around the same time.
I was going to say, who did it first?
Right. So I had all these Yellow albums popping up.
Weird.
And I was like, is there something I don't know?
Is that like a great minds think alike, or are we just copying each other and don't realize it?
I'd like to think you guys did it first, and then Metallica saw it and was like, that's pretty cool.
I'd like to think that. I'm sure they've been inspired by us for so long. No, the rad thing is those guys are actually longtime friends with my bandmates.
Right.
They're all Bay Area, and they all toured together like Lollapalooza back in mid 90s or something.
Right.
We did some shows with them in South America in 2017. That was rad because I had never seen them before, or I didn't I'm not like a huge follower or anything, but but it was rad, and they were super good guys. Like, we'd all go out to dinner at like 3 a.m. in South America, and it was like a cool first introduction to their world, and it was cool to see all the guys interact because they've all known each other for so long.
Yeah,
so,
and at that point, they were already well known around the world, so it's probably interesting just hearing the history from them and everything they've seen.
And we were playing for like 100,000 people. It was insane,
right?
Like insane. So, but I'm sure they discussed it then that they were going to hold off on album artwork and like, whatever you guys do next, we'll take cue from that.
Yeah, do you have any say in album art, or is
only in like the used days? Yeah. Like I was highly involved in everything. That was like my band,
Right.
With Rancid, it was one of those things where, to me, joining the band, I treated everything about it very delicately because I was a big Rancid fan, and I was like, all right, as a fan, if some guy came in and just changed this band,
totally,
I'd be super bummed.
Yeah.
Change the way it sounds, change the way it looked, change it. It's like, I love Rancid for Rancid. And so being the new guy, I was like, okay, I want to do this respectfully, where I want to stay true to the band's roots and do my part.
Kind of seamlessly come in.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But I also wanted it to feel like maybe a little up, a little, I don't know, like bring some energy, bring something fresh, use my voice creatively. And so I do, but with respect to what keeps this band true to its nature, and so,
Totally.
So it's a little more like a gig in the way that there's kind of parameters to work within, I think.
Yeah.
And there's places to get involved. I get involved in a lot of the merchandising and things like that with some of the cool stuff we do. And design and things like that. But when it comes to album art, that's been like a Tim thing for so long.
That's what my first guess was, because he's a hell of an artist himself, and it definitely looks like his art, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of classic, no brainer Rancid. It's like a black and white high contrast photo of the band with the logo. Like, it's basically just like pick what color, but we know what it will look like. You know what I mean? So it's like a nod back to Out Come the Wolves and things like that, where it's just a classic. That high contrast look.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to dwell too much and ask you too much about music, but I got it, right?
Yeah.
And for those who maybe don't even know who Rancid is, I some cliff notes kind of on how you got there, the Used. I know you've talked about it before in our podcast, but it's a pretty awesome story, dude. Like, it's an inspiring story.
Oh, thank you. It's
really rad.
Yeah, so I'll try to give you the shortest version, but I started the Used in 2001 as like an evolution of all my first bands. I was just playing in garage bands with my friends for many years. Lineups changed, names changed, things like that. I named the band The Used, and we ended up getting signed to Warner Brothers Records in late 2001. We officially signed their contract like January 1st, 2002. Made our first record and had an awesome career that we just really were delicate and careful about how we built, because we wanted to be like a grassroots band, and we just wanted to tour and tour and tour. So we did. Our first record cycle, I think the longest break we had was 10 days off in like over a year and a half or something. It was crazy.
That's warrior status.
Playing there was a period that in 19 days we played 21 shows.
Holy shit.
And we were just
in
working.
Different time zones and travel time, everything in between.
It was just like we were transitioning from Warped Tour to Ozfest, and somehow like cramming club shows in at night if we played early enough in the day. And we were kind of playing, like, when we do club shows and stuff, it was kind of like us and the bands we were on tour with were playing for each other. Right. Some places we were all small unknown bands, and so you just play for each other, and whatever
got the music out.
People happened to be in that club. But it was dope, because the next time we'd come through that town, suddenly there's 70 people or 100 people or whatever. And it was like, we just worked and worked and worked. And then, within a year, our record was gold, and we were playing like bigger, proper shows,
Yeah.
And so I did that. I've always been like a sober and drug-free guy. Never messed with like the straight edge thing and claimed anything. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about religion. It wasn't about anything. It was just my choice. I had been around a lot of substance use and abuse, in my early years, and it was just kind of one of those things that wasn't for me, and I wasn't curious. So I rolled with that,
Yeah, that's impressive. Historically in that line of work, there's a lot of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and everything. You're constantly around it. Everywhere you go, there's free this, free that.
Yeah.
Craft services, everything.
Right.
It's just a testament to, sticking true to who you are. It's awesome that you're able to carry through those years and stick with that.
I appreciate it. It was just one of those things. Like, I think my teenage years were the big, I don't know, like the shaping years for that for me, because I was like a diehard skater. Skateboarding was my life since I was 11. When I lost my father and he passed away, and then he was the reason why I played drums. He died by suicide, unfortunately. And so when I was like 16, I was just like an unhappy, depressed kid. My stepdad was very abusive and to my mom, and my step siblings were to her. And there was just like a lot of violence and contention in our home.
Yeah.
That me and my brothers and sister managed to avoid at all costs. But, calling the police weekly, to come break up a fight and shit like that. It was just like, I was really depressed and felt suicidal thoughts of my own. And I just needed something, and my friends were all kind of getting more and more into smoking weed and partying and drinking and stuff. And we were kids, and so the more they did that, the more I gravitated to music. And I decided to pick up drums because I stumbled over this photo of my dad when he was a teenager and he played drums.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I can take after something positive for my dad and
totally.
honor him in a way that, like could put a positive spin on his legacy and not just have it tainted by the way he went out,
right.
And so that was why I picked up drums in the first place. And then fast forward, like, again, being around all my friends and all this stuff, it was like I had enough going on. Like I didn't need to like bring in extra trouble when I was going home to this like contentious, violent, poverty like situation. We were quite a poor family, and so it was just like I don't need any added trouble. And so that was like the turnoff of everything to begin with, was I just didn't want to bring in extra trouble. And then as I got older and older,
incredibly mature decision for somebody at your age too. Dude, you don't hear that very often. That is, you knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You took an interest in something. You knew that, hey, this is something that I can really focus, put my heart and soul into, and probably kind of let some emotion out. I mean,
oh, big time. It was
beating on the drums
me.
Is not like a casual, just sitting there and relaxing thing. Right?
Yeah.
You're
but that's the thing. I was not a good drummer. Like skateboarding was my life, and it was more that I knew what I didn't want to do. I knew who I didn't want to be like, more than what I wanted to be. I didn't have this like vision of me in the future or anything. I just knew what I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And I had plenty of examples of what not to do. And so because of that, it was just like, well, I know I'm going to treat people with love and respect as much as I can, as a human being, that we have to navigate this world. And sometimes that can be a tall order, but like, I just know I never want to be a violent person. I never want to be, I never want to dabble with substances and things enough that they could affect me or create an addiction. I've been around a lot of addiction in my life and lost loved ones to addiction, and so it was a little more of the vision wasn't clear of who I wanted to be. It was clear who I didn't want to be.
Right.
Well,
dude, I mean, you've lived up to that to this day, though, because when I first met you, it was through our mutual friend, Ken Butch. Mm-hmm. It's through Ken Block, Butch, just kind of that whole crew there. And I was blown away with, you've experienced it for sure in your life. You've met so many people that either you idolized or you grew up watching in one way or another.
Yeah.
And they can be total dicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the takeaway I was telling Butch when the first times you and I interacted, I'm like, Branden has like taken the time to type like almost too big of a text. It's like I meant that in the nicest way, in the best way though. I'm like, dude, that is like so rad. You could have just been like, hey, sorry man, I'm busy, but it was like, I'm busy this date, that date, this date. Let's circle back here. I got a window here, and I'm like, dude, that was just.
I'm long-winded.
Speaks to who you are, though. It's awesome. You don't see that very often.
That's the thing. Don't get an email from me. Yeah. That's gonna take some time. Yeah. You're gonna have to like pause and resume to come back to those. Yeah. My storytelling gets carried away. My emails and texts.
I enjoy the hell of it. I have zero complaints.
But I just love like communicating. I feel like, as silly as it is, having gone through so many years of counseling and things like that, with the loss of my father, with the abuse in the household, all this stuff, and the state mandated counseling for my siblings and I, and it was like, you kind of recognize that talking through things is the biggest way to avoid dramas and more escalated problems and things like that. And I think I just carry that through my life in the way that I'm just like, I talk things through. Yeah. I think things through. I talk things through. You know what I mean? But, and I'm doing it right now where I didn't even finish my story. But so I guess to kind of recap and to wrap up that. So I was in the Used. We were doing that. We were working hard. And when we started the band, it was like 3 sober guys and 1 partying guy. Yeah. Like our singer had just come out of rehab. And so it was just like, he was doing his thing, but we were working really hard. And then fast forward through some successes and things like that. The other guys were getting caught up in partying and stuff too, which is fine. You know what I mean? But it was a matter of like, I was the one kind of doing all the business in the band. And everything from writing the set lists and coordinating whatever tours and production stuff and business on the label side of it. But then we got to a point where we got 2 buses. And we decided to do like a sober bus and a party bus. Because then our crew and the people that didn't party didn't have to be on a bus with people that were eating shrooms
3
at
in the morning,
5 a.m. and partying literally all night long, where it's like, I don't know, we're watching like romantic comedies on my bus.
Have you seen 50 First Dates yet? Yeah.
But like my bus being like, I was the only band member on that bus.
Right.
But it was a full, each bus had like 6, 8 people on it. But it was great. I thought it seemed like a good fix to that, where everybody could just, you do you, I'll do me, like to each their own, because I didn't care. It was just like when we started canceling shows because people were sick from partying too much or things like that, that was where it would start to affect me, and I'd have an attitude about it. Like, no, come on, cut the shit, like
you're passionate about what you were doing, and when something's in the way of that. Yeah, I can understand.
When we had that like 1 in a million shot, you know, we were told like, you're never going to make it. You're a band from Utah.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to do that. We were the first signed band out of Utah State ever.
Really?
You know what I mean? As far as like a rock band, like, and so it was just like, this was we were paving our own road, and it's like, let's not fuck it up because you guys want to eat shrooms at 5 a.m. Like, there's a time and place. When we have a day off the next day, then do that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not when we have a show the next day in New Jersey or whatever, and now we have to cancel it, and it's like, that kind of stuff would be frustrating. But I'd be the first guy like going and taking care of our singer, bringing him supplements and tea and whatever to help
anything to get you on
better,
the stage,
yeah. And so, but what I didn't know is that was kind of creating a wall between us. And ultimately, in the end, like right when we were about to make our third record, I got fired for being too different than the band because they wanted somebody that would party with them. So it literally was like opposite of what you'd expect, where I feel like I was the first guy in the music industry to get fired for not doing drugs and partying. Like, it was crazy.
How do you process being delivered something like that? I mean, because it's like you're out for a positive reason at the end of the day. Like but you're also out of something you love with a bunch of dudes you care about. Like, it's kind of got to be an emotional roller coaster.
Oh, big time. And that roller coaster just exploded, what I mean? Like, and the parts are still going up and down. And it was like, that was a really low point for me, because it was like, well, what good is it to do what you feel is the right thing? I was in a monogamous relationship. I had just gotten married. I was like always a faithful person. I just tried to do good business and be honest and all this stuff and do what I felt was right. And because I respected my career, and I respected how fortunate I was to have that career, and I wanted it to last as long as possible. So I was really like lost in the way of like, well, what good is it to be like that and to make what you think are the right decisions if this is what it's going to get you? Yeah. But really, I think my resentment wasn't toward like the world, like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to do what I want. It was nothing like that. It didn't jar me in who I was. If anything, it secured me that much more in my convictions. But what it left is a really bad taste in my mouth at the music industry. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, I'm done. Like, fuck this. Like, I don't want to be a part of an industry that handling myself the way I did ends up making me lose my job. My producer bailed on me, my label, all these people, because they were all in a position where they could make more money off the band if this new record was just made how they wanted it to be made. And so it was just like kind of the less friction route to just go with the band. And it was just like, really? Like, but of our band because of me. Yeah. Because the demos I submitted to you, like, I got our band signed. Like, I was one of the key writers in our band. And then, like, it was what it was. And so, but ironically, fast forward, and I was like done. I didn't play drums. And this was like a very short period, by the way. Like, this was in 2006.
I'm trying to think of digging into like discography of the Used and Rancid, how long this timeline was between these two.
I believe it was August 1st, 2006. I got kicked out of the band. Yeah. Fast forward to October, and it was like I lost my mind, but I felt like I'd never been more clear in my thoughts. But I like went out and bought a boat because I had just found wake surfing, and I lived right by a lake, and I was just like, I spent 7 days a week at the lake just wake surfing with my friends. My drum tech, good friend of mine, my wife who worked for the band, we were all unemployed all of a sudden. And rather than like run out and get jobs and worry or stress, we were like, fuck it. And
Let's
we
live
just
for
went
a
to the
bit.
lake and played in the lake every day.
Still a little bit of living. Yeah.
So irresponsible, but at the same time, I think was the best thing I could have done because it kept me in a positive headspace, you know? And it was just like, I was having fun. I wasn't stressing. And it's like, how am I going to even pay for this boat? How am I going to pay for anything?
But you're around a bunch of people that believe in you.
Yeah. And I'm like,
and know who you are. Yeah.
And that was the thing too, is it drew a very, you know, clear line in the sand when I got kicked out of the band, where all of a sudden a lot of my friends just opted, like as if there were sides to take.
Yeah.
And took the side of my band. And it was like, really? Because I'm not like in a big band now.
Find out who your friends are.
I'm not
man,
your friend. And so it was like my circle. I really, you know, embraced that idea of I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, you know? And it's like my friends I truly embrace, because it's like the ones that stood by me through that.
Yeah.
It made it clear who my friends were.
Totally.
You know? And then, so we had a blast. And then toward the end of October, Rancid was playing 2 shows in Salt Lake City. And Max Weinberg, Springsteen's drummer, a legend.
Son is Slipknot drummer.
Yep, Jay.
Yeah.
He's like a brother to me.
Yeah.
Those guys are like family.
Hell of a talented family.
Oh, they're so incredibly talented.
Yeah.
But Max was calling me like every other day and like giving me pep talks and stuff. And I'll never forget, he said at one point in one of our conversations, he was like, you know, when Bruce broke up the E Street Band, Ringo Starr would call me every day and give me pep talks. So I feel like it's my, like, that's what I want to do for you.
Yeah.
You know, I want to give you the same, you know, like support. And I was just like, my mind was blown. Like Ringo,
Okay, that's my
to
question.
Max, to me, like what?
That's what I was just gonna say. Did you have a pinch me moment there when
Oh,
he's
the whole thing was a pinch me. It
name
was a slap me.
dropping? Yeah, Ringo Starr, the Beatles Ringo Starr,
Yeah.
was talking to you, and now you feel the honor to carry that through me.
And part of me is like trying to play it cool, like, oh yeah, this is totally a normal sentence that someone would say to me. You know what I mean? Like what the fuck? Like it was just bizarre, you know? But it was like in this super low, so it was like he was throwing me that, you know, life preserver where it's like it was just literally felt like a lifeline to hear things like that. Like, wow, okay. And I still was just like, who the fuck am I? But it was just like, all I know is like Max Weinberg thinks I should not give up and quit. Maybe there's something to this, you know? And it was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but maybe I should do something. And then I literally was on the phone with him one night for like the 40-minute drive to Salt Lake City to go see Rancid. I was with my best friend Spike, my wife at the time, who's still one of my best friends on earth. And she and I went to see Rancid. We've loved Rancid forever, and one of my favorite bands. And the guys were like, naturally a beach ball just blew by my,
just went flying by the window.
by my back door. It's a normal thing. But so we go to the show and we get in, and like I had become friends with the guys on Warped Tour in 2003. When the Used and Rancid were 2 of the headliners that year. And so I knew the guys enough that like they got me in the guest list, and I ran into them side stage before they were going on and talked to them. They're like, man, we heard about what happened. That's fucked up. Like, stick around afterward. We want to talk to you. And I was like, okay, rad. And they're like shouting me out on stage and stuff while they're playing. And I'm like, oh, no way. Like one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
They're in my hometown. They're giving me shout outs. Like I'm kind of coming out from under my rock, you know, and finally off my boat. Yeah. And I'm like, and it just felt really good.
I'm
you know?
sunburnt, but I'm at the Rancid show.
Right? And like, so we hang out afterward, and we're talking on the bus, and like, they're telling me to tell the whole story. So I'm just going in depth, telling the story more so than I am now. And you know, in the end, they were funny about it. They're like, F those guys, like you're the only one we liked anyway. like, you know, and then Tim was just like, you know, like, keep your chin up, man. Keep playing. He's like, something's going to work out for me. I got a good feeling about it. Like something's going to work out for you. And he was like encouraging, like he even said at one point, he's like, maybe just start a band with your friends. And I was like, yeah, but I did that.
Yeah.
And look what it got me. Like, I don't exactly have the motivation to try it again and put everything of me into this again just to lose
for
it
unknown,
for bullshit reasons.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, you know, like, I don't know that that's the answer for me, but whatever, we'll see. And then we talked about maybe me producing, because I've loved producing records and stuff. And so he's like, yeah, maybe you can produce something for Hellcat. Like, I don't know. And so we like exchange information and stuff. And then I go to the show the next day. We hang out, same kind of thing. And then like I kind of go home from these days, and I just was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. Like I'm gonna play. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I need to just like get reacquainted with my drums. And so I made this like playlist of like every kind of music, from like pop jazz to heavy music to, you know, and hardcore to punk.
That you recorded?
Just
a demo tape basically?
No, like playlists like from my iPod.
Okay,
like just songs I love, you know, and jazz and like anything. And I just started playing drums every day. And this was like a Monday that I started, and having just seen those guys before the weekend. And I started playing drums every day. And then that Friday, Tim had been hitting me up a lot, just like checking in on me and just saying, hey, which was sweet. And then he hit me up on this like Friday, and I thought it was just the same kind of thing. And he's like, yo, I'm like chilling at home in LA. Like, hit me up. And I'm like, oh, like, or he's like, call me. I was like, he never says to call me. Like, I was stoked. Like, it's Tim Armstrong, you know? I was like, yeah, like,
Hello?
And so I remember I was driving home from hanging out with one of my friends and had gotten a message, and I was like, all right. And I got home and like parked in my like little side driveway or whatever. And I can just see it all. And I call him up, and he's just like, hey, and sounds all somber. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And he's like, hey man, how's it going? Like, I'm like, good. What's going on?
I like your Tim impression.
Yeah, how you doing? You know, and it's hard to not do it. But like, and he's just, it goes on to tell me that Brett Reed, the drummer of Rancid, had just quit the band. And my heart just sank.
I was going to say.
I was so bummed. I was like, my assumption, my first thought was that he's telling me Rancid's done.
So it wasn't even slightly in the back. I mean, purely out of love for your other friend.
Yeah. Brett was a friend of mine, like a good friend of mine. They all are.
But at that moment, you had no assumption.
Dude, no idea.
Yeah.
No idea at all. It was just a matter of seconds. But I was just like, oh, like crushed. Like, not this. Like, you guys were just like trying to give me hope. And now you're fucking done. It was like my instant thought. But he's just like, yeah, like he just quit Rancid. And he's like, we have this big sold out UK tour coming up in like 5 days. I'm like, fuck. He's like, yeah, so we're just wondering, will you do it? And I just
5 days of prep time?
Not even. The tour started in 5 days. Like, and so I just instantly, I mean, the words came out of my mouth just like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, hell yeah. Like, and I'm just like instant stomach churns, tears down my face. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, and he's like, yo, I'm going to have Lars call you. Like so stoked. Hell yeah. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, oh, hang up the phone. I'm just like
straight to the drums.
What the hell? Dude, it gives me goosebumps still. Yeah. But like, yeah, well, it was like straight to the toilet. Yeah. I was just like a mess. And like, dude, Lars called me like, I don't know, an hour later.
Yeah.
Gave me 25 songs to learn. And we set up a rehearsal for like 2 or 3 days later. We like had this little rehearsal studio, all borrowed gear because all the band's gear was on its way to the UK. I think Manchester or something was the first show. And so we're just like on borrowed equipment. We get there and I'm there early and they're just like warming up and stuff. And the guys walk in the room and just like, it's like an ambush. They're like, hey, and they all give me a hug, put on their guitars. And I'm like, shit. So I sit down.
We're going into this now.
And then Lars is just like, let's play Roots. And then just starts playing Roots Radicals right then. I'm like, oh my God. Like, they haven't even been in the room for 1 minute yet.
There's no how you been.
Yeah. I'm like,
how's the
holy
family?
Shit. Like, okay. So we start playing and we just go. And I'm playing the song and it's just like so intense, but at the same time so familiar.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I know these songs like the back of my hand. But ironically, I never played drums to Rancid songs. Like, I knew more songs of theirs on guitar probably than drums.
Oh, really?
You know, just because it was like, no disrespect to Brett at all, but the drums were not exactly like difficult or that interesting. The songs are incredible, but the drums are pretty elementary, which is awesome. Like, for the song.
It works great for the song.
Yeah. And Brett's an incredible
authentic
drummer.
Rancid tone.
Yeah. And he's an awesome drummer, and I respect that he would play what the song needs, not what made him look good.
Right.
Because that's what, to me, that's more what a good drummer is. You know, it's not a flex of how many notes can you play. It's a flex of how creative can you be for the song?
Right.
You know? So I think Brett was an incredible drummer and did a great job with Rancid, but it was just not like necessarily appealing for me to play along to. So, I knew these songs so well, I hadn't actually played them, you know? And so yeah, it was intense.
Buckle up.
Yeah. So we play Roots Radicals. We get done. The guys seem stoked. I'm kind of feeling it out. And then they're like, let's try a fast one. Let's try It's Quite All Right. And that song, like on the record, like only has like a few fills, and they're kind of like, you know, filling some gaps, going from verse to chorus or whatever. But because I knew the song so well, like as far as the whole song goes, like, you know, vocals and everything, I just heard spots where there's room for more that wouldn't step on the toes with bass or guitars. So I just threw like a little bit of me in there, you know, and played the song, you know, plus one. and then we got done with that, and they were so stoked, like all just laughing and smiling, and they were so fired up. Dude. And then they're like, let's take a break. And I'm like, take a break? We've just played like 4.5 minutes worth of music. Like, what? I'm just thinking, like, I'm so stressed.
It was
intense,
5 songs, but it was 4.5 minutes.
Yeah. So it's like so intense. So we go outside, and they're like having phone calls and cigarettes and whatever. And I'm just sitting there, like, not knowing what the hell, like, just still so nervous, you know? And then they come over and just all at once all sit around me at this like picnic table outside of the studio and sit down, and Matt Freeman sits across from me, and he's like, all right, so we want you to be a permanent member of Rancid. You'll be like,
this is all the same day.
Same day. 4 minutes into playing together. And he's like, yeah, you'll be a full member, like full quarter member. Like, we want you to join the band permanently. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And they're like, yeah, let's go jam. I'm like, what is happening?
So now you're like, jamming while processing this.
Yeah, I'm like, I just joined Rancid. Like, how the fuck was this? What? Because honestly, I swear to God, I did not think this meant I was joining the band. To me, it was like, I'm helping my friends out while they sort shit out.
Fill into the tour.
They have this tour that's coming up that's sold out, and they can't bail on it. And I know how the logistics of that shit go. Like, that's going to screw you if you cancel a tour like that, you know? And so it was like, I was just helping my friends, and then who knows? Anything could happen.
It's like going to interview for a custodian job, and all of a sudden you're like a director.
Right?
On the same day.
Yeah. And so, just like that, I joined Rancid. And then we went back in. We jammed like maybe another half hour. And I was just like, wait, we're done? Like, we haven't even played through one full set. And then they gave me 15 more songs that night to learn that I learned that night just playing on pillows in my hotel room. And then the next day we jammed again and played for only about 45 minutes total.
Wow.
Where our shows were 90 minutes at the time, you know, like a 30 plus song set list. And then we got on a plane, flew to UK, and
it's history since.
And dude, like the first show, we were playing songs I had never played with the band before.
Nothing in rehearsal, even just stuff.
Not at all. We never played through a full set.
For you, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
We had never played through a full set, and some of those songs I hadn't even played on a drum set.
Wow.
But only pillows because I never had a chance to play on them.
That first show,
dude. I was so nervous, but it was like the second we started, like any show, it just goes away.
Yeah. Adrenaline kicks in, and
like that second of that downbeat, it's the best feeling. So and then on the tour, every day at soundcheck, Lars would like bust out a song like, you know, Junkie Man or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know of it. Like, yeah. And he'd like, you got it. And I just like play along, just what I remember from listening to the records for so long. We'd play the full song, be like, yeah, let's play that one tonight. I'm like, oh my God. Like, it just became laughable.
Rapid
like,
fire.
All right, I guess I got it.
Yeah.
And it kind of just taught me to trust myself a little bit more, where it's like, no, I know these songs. Just because I don't know the drums parts specifically, where kick drums are and whatever. It's like, I was so inside of the creativity and approach to what Brett did on those records that it's like, no, I know what
you got the structure, but then you can put your creative twist on it.
Yeah.
Kind of almost like the songs are almost reborn again, with a little bit of a new touch to it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I had the advantage too, where like we make records in a really unique way, at least from what I've done in the past with my previous bands. But like when we record, we tend to just like write something right then and jam it, and like it'll usually even be like on acoustics. We'll be in a circle or something. I don't even have sticks. I'm just like tapping on my lap, and we'll kind of write like a rough idea. And then Brett Gerwitz, our producer, will be like, cool, let's try it. And so I sit down to the drums to play this song for the first time ever that we just barely wrote. And I'll be like making up the part as I go, but I don't know what the vocal's going to do. I don't know. I'm just trying to remember the pocket, you know, what tempo we were doing and the structure of the song. And so I'm kind of just have to play it safe, where it's like, I just need to lay down a foundation that we can build upon, because I don't know what the vocal's going to do. I don't want to step on it. I don't want to do like flashy fills and tricky beats and shit that's going to fuck up what a vocal could do. Because in the end, that's what's important is the vocal and the overall song, not the individuals, you know? But because of that, learning the whatever it was at the time, 7 Rancid records or whatever that they had before, I know those songs so well that I know what the vocal's doing. I know what the bass is doing. I know what everything the guitars are doing. I know all that. So I get to play what Brett did, but then I have the advantage of knowing where the gaps are that I can add a little anything, like even the most subtle little thing. I don't go crazy with any of it because it would change the band.
Totally. You and I were talking about this off camera, how some bands have, tried to going down a new avenue, and it works a lot of the time, but then other times it just kind of, they slip away and their record sales go down, their streams go down, and then you kind of forget about that band. Rancid for 30 years has stayed Rancid.
Yeah.
I mean, down to the new album, there's I think there's a 48-second track on there or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is rad.
Yeah.
So my coworker Scott, we sent each other the album when it came out. I'm like, new Rancid album out today. And I'm like, what do you think of it? He goes, it's classic Rancid. I love it.
Rad.
It's cool that it's, people are still that, what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
You're not bummed about it. You're like, this is going to be fast and awesome. And it's going to be Rancid, just like it's been since day one.
And I think that's kind of the objective. When we're going to make a record, it's kind of like a lot of times we'll discuss what it is we want to do. Like, I mean, it could be as simple as, are we doing any ska on this record?
Yeah,
are we doing, do we want to write a fast hardcore record? We'll kind of have this overall idea of what we're going for. And this one was a little bit more of a nod to like the Let's Go era, where I love that record. That's one of my favorite Rancid records. Yeah. So to me, that was like, all right, like I know exactly what to do, So every song we'd write,
this is my calling.
I'm just thinking of Let's Go type stuff. And like, oh wait, I think we should do this thing. Like, it'd be hella Let's Go if we did like this halftime part right here, like right before this part or whatever. And it was kind of fun because as a fan, like I just knew those kind of things as if I was a part of those records being made.
Right.
And, it's been a trip, but
so,
I
got a question for you here.
Yeah.
So growing up, I grew up, like action sports heyday, I want to say.
Okay.
Granted, there is I just watched X Games, a few weeks ago now. It was the first time I watched X Games in a while and thought, oh, dude, it kind of looks like X Games. Like it was packed. There's people everywhere. I was stoked for it. Action sports kind of on the up and up in the last few years. But at what point, you said you grew up doing, BMX and skateboarding and all of that. It's interesting to me how influential punk, rock, or heavy metal, all of that has been in action sports, whether it's freestyle motocross, skateboarding, BMX, whatever it is. Those two disciplines just seem to collide so seamlessly. Like for you growing up being a skateboarder, was there a point when you realized dude, this is kind of rad. I'm into these sports. I'm into these bands. These two worlds are colliding and I get to share my passion of both of them at the same time.
I think it was one of those I think the passion came from those being kind of married. I mean, they're siblings, It's like growing up. For me, when I was growing up, skateboarding was late 80s, all through the 90s, and it was that was the outcast sport.
Right.
And you would never call it a sport back then either. You know what I mean? It was a subculture. And it was just what we did.
It was Rodney Mullen and Tony Hawk were the only names anybody knew of.
Yeah, and it was just skaters were, we were bullied, we were chased, we were people trying to beat us up and stuff. And it was just you're just getting heckled everywhere you go. And it was just it was punk rock.
Yeah.
You know, skateboarding is punk rock, and BMX at the time too, with Matt Hoffman, Dave Mura, Dennis McCoy, all these like legends and people like paving the way for this sport. You know, again, I would have never called either of these a sport back then, but they are, in all fairness. But it was just one of those things where I don't know which came first, chicken or the egg, in the way that it's like punk rock, like kind of being tied to these action sports, or these action sports being tied to punk rock. It's like
one
no, they're
forever.
just one and the same.
These films, everything. Like I grew up watching Krusty Demons, and I don't know if you are aware, like Slednex films. It was the snowmobile version of Krusty Demons through the 90s and early 2000s. There's Rancid, Bad Religion, Pennywise, NoFX, Social Distortion in those.
Oh yeah.
So like I was obsessed with sleds and bikes growing up, right?
Yeah.
So I watched these movies, which I then immediately associated these songs with the sport. So to this day, if I'm going to the parking lot, it's like, all right, there's some Pennywise in the mix. There's some Social D. There's some Lamb of God in the mix. Like, but it's one of those things where I'm like remembering what segment it was from and what movie. Right. And I'm just associating with that. Takes you back. And I'm putting my helmet on, you know, got the door open in the truck, blasting music, getting fired up.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't changed, man. It's like when the video games, PS2, all that stuff, I feel like it opened up the genre to so many kids. I see so many kids saying, hey, remember this from Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 or whatever? Or that song was on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
Oh, yeah. That soundtrack became as pivotal as the game.
Yeah. Like Melancholy. Like I discovered that band through, I want to say a Dave Mirra game or something.
Yeah.
And that just kept opening it up. I mean, that's just kind of a product of my generation, being a, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid when those games are coming out.
Yeah.
But it's action sports, the role it plays in working in action sports myself. It's just been so influential in how
it's like the soundtrack of that lifestyle, you know, and it just, again, these were like outcast subculture type of activities, you know, that eventually caught on to the mainstream, if you will, but that wasn't where it originated. This wasn't like the cool thing to do. None of these things were the cool thing to do, but it was where you found the most passion and the most heart and the most culture and the most diversity and all of these great elements that skateboarding and BMX and all these action sports had. And then it was just kind of like the world was late to catch up. Like, oh, now you get it too?
And then
like,
it became the cool thing.
Yeah. And it's like that's all good and fine, you know, like it's rad. These are for everybody, you know, like it doesn't matter where you found skateboarding, you know, you should feel like you're welcome to be a skater as well. It shouldn't be like suddenly the cool kid club where like, no, you can't, you're not grassroots enough, or you're not. It's like, no, f- that. That's not the way to do it. It's a community, and I think the purists and the legit people will always embrace the evolution and the new people, because these new faces, I mean, these were people that were born in the 2000s that are changing the shape of these sports now and taking them to a next level. You know, you see the crazy shit that people are landing. And,
I just saw a 12-year-old he was trying to kickflip 900 and best trick on the pipe.
Insane.
What?
Was that the kid that was out at Tony's spot skating too?
Yeah, and then Tony dropped in on best trick at X this year.
Yeah,
he competed.
So dope.
And so he got to watch this 12-year-old trying to kickflip Indy 9.
Insane. Insane.
What, 24 years later after Tony landed the 9? He's watching a kid that was...
like, that's awesome. That's got to like mess with you, but at the same time feel incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, it was like, you know, living in a small town in Utah, my exposure to stuff wasn't, you know, like there wasn't even much music in my house. I was really late to the game. But so much of the great music that I discovered was through like skate videos and things like that, and BMX videos and snowboarding videos. And it was like, you hear these songs and it was like, all right, is it the song making this part so rad, or is the part making the song so rad? Because this mix is perfect. And it was like, so good, and you found so much good music that way. And that was like a lot of my entry and discovery into that world in the first place was through skate videos.
Yeah, some of the tracks on them, honestly, I'm like ruined by them. So like, for example, in the sled world, Slednex 8, this was in 2005. There's this guy up in Alaska named Jason Semler, and he has Before I Forget by Slipknot. is the song. And you know that intro comes in, that on the beginning of the song.
I don't remember offhand.
I love that you don't.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's a pause, and then Corey Taylor comes in, but there's a pause, and he hits like this 200-footer, and it's just the sound of him brake tap throttle in the air in the pause in the track. So now when I hear the song, I mean,
you hear that?
This came out 18 years ago, this movie. I'm like, where's the sled sound? Like, it's just been for that long, you know, like these songs and these films just went hand in hand.
Yeah.
Now I picture every shot, you know, I can remember like, oh, this part of the song, he's hitting this drop up in Canada or whatever.
Totally.
It's just wild. There's nothing else like that where they clash that well.
I love it. Again, they're hand in hand. Yeah. You know, it's like so many of those skaters, BMXers, all these riders, so many of them are musicians too. Yeah. And then so many of these like professional bands are also skaters and riders, and you know, and it's dope. Mm-hmm. It's like it's rad to see the way the worlds merge, you know, and the way that it's not just simply the music is a great soundtrack for that and vice versa. It's actually people that do these things. Right. You know? I mean, like me, it was like, I've been skateboarding since I was 11, and I still do. I definitely ride like a 45-year-old drummer now when I skate. But the ramps are getting smaller. The stair gaps are getting smaller.
The coping's getting a little easier. You can't hang up on it.
We're back to parking blocks. Yeah. You know,
you can't hang up on a rock fake anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like, but the love is still there. I still get the same thrill out of skating and landing a trick and whatever. It doesn't matter if I'm doing like a board slide shove it. It's like, for me, that's exciting to stick it and like cool. Like, you know, it's like, yeah, that's nothing. There are children at the local skate park that are doing far cooler shit. Yeah. But I don't give a fuck. Like, it's not a contest.
Yeah. You know? I won in my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I love it.
I love watching your social because, you know, you dove into the UTV thing. I know Ken introduced you to a lot of that and kind of taught you the fundamentals on like how to jump properly and not blow out axles and all that. But
after a few blown out, I broke one of his axles on one of his machines. My first time I ever got in one.
I'm sure. I bet he wasn't even shocked.
No, and he found out via text because I was riding with like Butch and Forrest and the crew down at Little Sahara, and Ron was driving this particular one. It was like a 4-seater, and Ron was jumping, and I was like getting photos of it. And then Ron's like, "You want to try it?" I'm like, "Oh, hell yeah!" Which I'm out there like on my ATV, like, you know, we joked earlier. I've the rollerblading of the dirt world, but I grew up on like 4-wheelers, and that was like the thing in my household. So I love 4-wheelers to this day. But I was out there on my 4-wheeler, and I'd jump like 70 feet or something, and throw it on that thing. And so I was thinking like, "Oh, are you kidding?" Like, a roll cage and seat belts and like, easy. I'm not even like, you know, I could send this however, like it just seemed so like not sketchy to me. And so I jumped in, but I was used to like with my 4-wheelers, like keeping a consistent throttle so you didn't nosedive or like
the muscle memory.
Yeah. And so I'd like feather it and then usually would like land with some throttle still and just to ride out and thinking that would be the same approach to one of those, you know? And so I just like my first try, just like send it. And like Ron got the best photos of me. Like I remember I posted it that day. It's like, you'd have to scroll back quite a ways, but it was this great photo of me just sending this 4-seater like quite a ways in the air and throwing it far, but I would land with my foot still on the gas a little bit.
Oh man.
Not knowing, you know, and my inexperienced ass, like, whatever. And then sure enough, like we actually don't know if I broke it or Ron because he was doing the same stuff. But sure enough, I think
definitely both
breaking
participated a bit in the breaking.
we weren't doing any favors.
It was an
to
even
the machine.
split, yeah.
And this is before like the Maverick X3s came out.
Right.
This is like the models right before that.
Like almost like a trail UTV at that time.
Yeah, they were very like
narrow and
they had a very utility vibe to them still, like a Razor and things like that were doing for so long. And it was like right around the time BJ Baldwin's new video had come out.
Was the one with the side-by-side or the trophy truck?
It was the trophy truck, but they had the side-by-side. Brian Scotto was in the side-by-side ripping around, and he was wearing a Bigfoot costume.
Mm-hmm. I remember it. Yeah. It was kind of a Gymkhana-like video. But
exactly. It was BJ's version of like a Gymkhana.
Yeah.
I think it was through Oregon or somewhere somewhere up kind of
yeah,
by you.
yeah.
But I had seen that video and it looked so dope and it made me want one of those. And I actually wrote the song for that video, like the outro, like song during the credits.
Yeah.
Scotto hit me up and was like, "Hey, do you want to do a song for this?" Like, and he just kind of gave me some parameters. Like, yeah, we want it to be like a punk song, maybe like kind of about a chase and this and that, and just kind of gave me some stuff to work with. And so I just wrote the whole song by myself. Like I played every instrument and sang it and did everything.
I gotta rewatch it now.
And it's in the credits of that.
That's rad.
Of that shot. And that was actually how I got my first Can-Am, because their budget was like tapped out. So they paid me by sending me one of their prototype Can-Ams, and it had been like destroyed and rebuilt and destroyed and rebuilt. So it was like one man's trash is another man's treasure kind of thing. I was stoked as hell to get it. But anyway, so I'd text Ken at the end of that day that we were writing and that I broke it. I sent him like the photo of me jumping hella big, and I was like, "Dear Ken Block, like, thanks for letting me like play on your new Can-Am or whatever." I was like, "I might have busted some shit on it. Sorry. Thanks again," or whatever.
You can have it back now.
And he wrote back like, "You bastard!" Like, haha. And then he's just like, "Haha, that's awesome," or whatever it was. But it was good times. And then him and I have done like countless adventures on those things through Moab, through Sand Hollow, and
dude, you're in such a good spot for it. That's kind of become your outlet, huh? When you're off the road.
I mean,
you built a house where you can pull out of your driveway and go ride for hours upon hours.
I love it. I love it.
That's kind of where our two worlds collide a bit. I mean, that's for our whole pro team. I mean, the snowmobile thing is like, once the helmet's on and you're out there, there's not a worry in the world.
Yeah.
You're just everything, business,
right?
Whatever, relationships. It's like once you're in that helmet and you're fully invested in something that you love front to back, like, dude, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm sure it's the same for you with music, but having something like that gives you probably a similar feeling outside of your day job has got to be an absolute joy.
Well, and it's interesting when your primary hobby becomes your job, and your like number one passion, when it becomes work and how you pay your bills. You get it.
Yeah, you're speaking to the choir, man.
I feel like having other hobbies that you can be passionate about are what keep everything in perspective, and
I'm super into knitting.
Yeah, right. No. Hell, like whatever it take, and like I honestly think that like whether I'm wake surfing and playing on my boat or Can-Ams or pickleball or skateboarding or whatever it is, it's like I love doing all these things. I don't really I'm not worried about pushing all of them and being like crazy, like whatever, good at them. Dude, I just love doing these other outlets because it keeps everything feeling like hobbies. And so when I go back to music, it doesn't feel like now I'm checking in for work.
Right.
It's like, no, this is just another hobby. I'm just a little bit better at this one.
Yeah.
And me and my friends get to do it. And like, I get to do it on a different level than I do my other hobbies, but it kind of just keeps things in perspective for me.
It's funny. I mean, it's just interesting how we're in totally different industries, yet very similar mindsets on it. Like, snowmobiling's the one thing before cameras. Like, I'm a sledder at heart, right? My day job is working with cameras, but snowmobiling's where it's at for me. And that's like the one thing I can, without tooting my own horn, like I'm pretty good at riding snowmobiles, right? Dirt bikes, I'm pretty average. Like everything else, pretty average. So it's really fun in the summer months going and doing these things and kind of starting from like ground zero again and figuring out the fundamentals. But then winter comes around, it's kind of like a sigh of relief. I'm like, oh, I know how to crash on this. I know what the machine's going to do.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable. I'm one with this thing. But, same concept.
Yeah. And I love some of the parallels that I've found. Ken and I used to talk about this, where there's like parallels to me between driving and drumming. And it's one thing I really love about the Can-Ams, because you got to be sharp, you got to be focused, you got to be responsive, you got to everything. Your touch is delicate and needs to be strong at times, but finesse at other times, and all of these elements. And in the end, all four, your both arms and legs are all doing their own thing independent of each other, and they're all crucial. You can't take one of them out of the mix.
Yeah.
And it's like the concentration and focus while using all four limbs and doing some intense, fast-paced thing where you need to just be on the ball. And if you get sidetracked for even a moment, you're fucked.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like if you're doing like some intense real driving, you cannot stray at all.
Minimal room for error.
You know, and because of that, you're cutting everything else off, and you're just in the moment. You're never more present than you are behind that wheel.
Yeah.
And I mean, sleds, motocross, whatever it may be, when you're requiring your full body and your full attention, to me, there's just such parallels with drumming, because it's like I'm using all 4 limbs and all of my focus and so much energy and exertion and all this stuff and concentration. But in the end, you're also trying to make it fun. That's the objective, is to have fun. This is passion, and we love this shit. So, but yeah, the same thing. It's like if I just start like daydreaming of shit while I'm playing, I might miss some notes. I might fuck up. I might, forget a pause or whatever it may be. And it's like, I'm gonna fuck up at my job if I don't concentrate. I can't afford to not concentrate.
End of the day, it's a passion, but it's also a job. Yeah. And there's people there who, spent money and time to come see you, and you just want to make it the best night they've ever had.
Exactly. Yeah. And each person there has gone through whatever they've gone through to be at those shows. Right. And it's like, you owe it to them to give them the best show that night. Every crowd deserves to see the same 100%.
Totally.
So you can't stray and waver from, focus. You got to do your job.
With that, one of our riders, this just sticks with me. Sane Skinner. I've told you about Sane, and we've tried to align on a few things. He does a lot of guiding and instructing too. And he said, you want it to become a feeling. The second it becomes a feeling, whatever it is, you drumming, dirt bike, snowmobile, side by side. The second it becomes a feeling, it becomes like the next level of fun. Yeah. When you don't have to focus on every move you're making, where your feet are, where your hands are on the bars, where your throttle position is, when you're braking, and it just becomes a feeling and you're kind of in the flow state. I'm like, dude, that is universal for anything at a high level.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such a great way of putting it, for sure. I mean, because it is less rather than like focus or whatever, it's more to me, when I say focus, it's like being present.
Right.
Where you just need to stay sharp. You need to stay focused. But yeah, exactly that. You have to be in tune and feel it. And yeah, you can feel the difference when you ride. When you're a little disconnected and you're like, oh shit, like, all right, bring it back home. Like,
same thing for you, I'm sure.
Bring it back in. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I got to get my head in the game. Right. You know what I mean? And then it's all the difference in the world. And ultimately it's like, you shouldn't have to think about it tons. Being focused should be different than thinking about it, in the way that it's like, I'm not counting notes. I'm not like focused on my hi-hat and like my right arm hitting my hi-hat.
Like 1, 2, 3, 4.
You know what I mean? It's like, no, that's going to fuck it all up. You're going to just be overthinking, and there's not going to be any pocket and groove. Yeah. And same with driving anything. It's like, you can't just be all technical and not feel, it's got to be just like settle into it. You got to be one with the instrument or one with the machine.
That just stuck with me. I mean, it's so universal. Once it becomes a feeling, you are like really at home with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I totally agreed. And I'll have days where I'm like, why is this not a feeling right now? I'm like, oh, I am overthinking every aspect of it. And then what I have to do is like, just go do something simple for a second. Get back into a groove. Like, have you ever had just like I don't want to say a train wreck, but an evening where things just aren't going right, or whether it's something tech related or whatever, and just trying to overcome that? And
oh yeah, countless times. Yeah. We did in 2017. We were on tour with Green Day out in Europe, and we were playing Hyde Park in London. And so I use what they call in-ear monitors, which are what they sound like. It's like a custom molded headphone earbud kind of thing with wires. And it goes to like a wireless pack that's on my belt. And they're playing me my mix, because those things, with those just in, they're like the best earplug, and you can't hear shit.
Right.
And so you need everything to be dialed so you can hear it all and hear it well. And when it works, it's the best thing ever. We were playing this massive show. It was sold out in Hyde Park, which was, I want to say, like upwards of like 70,000 people or something. Venue. Like, yeah, huge. And my in-ear monitors were not working for most of the show. I was getting nothing, which means I'm not hearing my bandmates. I can't hear my own drums, and you're just hearing fidgeting and trying to figure it out. I've got 70,000 or whatever people staring at me, and that shit is intense, dude. But nothing like, as much as something like that pulls you out of it, it also forces you in it more than ever, because you're just back to square one of like,
so what do you do?
Just play the parts right. You know what I mean? They'll all play to me. Like, just do your part and like whatever, and try to keep your cool, because you want to just have a meltdown, like, fucking fix it. And there's times you fucking like end up chucking something off of whatever, because you have like a whatever tantrum. But for the most part, you just got to keep your cool, and you got to just do the part. And again, it's like the crowd doesn't know anything is going wrong.
Right.
Even my bandmates might not know there's anything going wrong. There's times where there's technical difficulties that affect all of us, but it's like,
it's up to you to make everybody else think nothing's going wrong too.
And so those shows are interesting, because you come off stage and everybody, it's like, when it's all news to them, like, oh, really? I had no idea. Like, good.
You're like, yes.
That's because I'm a fucking professional.
Yes. You know what I mean? You're like, I did my job.
Yeah. But yeah, man, there's been countless shows where things like that go wrong. But in the end, it's like, well, I know my job. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know these songs.
Yeah.
You know, there's stressful times where, like, if I can't hear a guitar playing an intro, or whoever's playing the intro of that song,
when to start.
There's nothing I can't just like, maybe like I pop an ear out and I'm just like staring at Matt Freeman while he's playing like the bass intro or something, and I'm just like listening, and I know where to come in. And then from there, it's smooth sailing. You know, it's like, you can usually work through any of those things, but it's like a heightened intensity when you have that many people staring at you and that kind of pressure.
For sure.
And just like, that show was during the day too, so it was just like daylight where I can see all those
70,000 people.
Or when it's nighttime,
you.
you don't realize, it's like, you know, there's that many people there, but when you don't see them, you can just play it off like, oh, I only see the first couple thousand, and then it disappears to black. But a show like that, when it's like heads to the horizon, you're just like, oh my God, like, it's intense.
Don't mess it up.
It's intense, man.
Dude, we could some other time. I mean, the logistics of those shows is just insanity too.
Yeah.
I'm always like, hats off to the guys transporting everything.
Oh yeah.
Flipping stages, getting everything, guitar techs, everybody.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that is like a small city moving around the country.
Right. It looks like there's 4 people up there doing the show. You know what I mean? But it's like, no, there's a village that without those people, we can't do shit. You know, like there are so many people, from the promoters to our agent to management, people that coordinate so many moving parts, and then getting those moving parts into action and making it all work. And everybody from the people that assemble the stages to the security crews to the vendors to the everything is like, there are so many people that are credit to like a good show going off without a hitch. It's like, it's incredible. It's overlooked far too often. Yeah. Because without those people, we wouldn't, you know, none of us would get to enjoy these shows like we do.
It puts it in perspective for me a little. Like, so this fall, excuse me, I go on tour. I say that in quotes. We do snow shows, just like, you know, like the snow world of like SEMA type of stuff. Okay. And we have like, I don't know, 20 of them between the East Coast, Midwest, and the West. And we're all split up. You know, there's guys in the East Coast, there's guys in the Midwest, and there's guys in the West. And I do like 3 of them a year. And they're kind of like 2 to 3 weeks in a row. And by the end of that, I'm like, wow, that felt like a rally. And then I like think about guys like yourself. And I'm like, dude, you guys got to be warriors to do this year after year. But I mean, you enjoy it, of course.
Oh, yeah,
It's awesome. It's your passion. But every now and then I just feel bad. I'm like, I can't be complaining. I'm like, I know guys that do this 30 days straight almost with no breaks in between.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of contrast for me in the way that it's like, you know, like, I mean, it might feel like a lot of work. I mean, even just simply living out of a duffel bag can be tedious, you know, and being in a new city or a new country every day. As rad as that is, it takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on you mentally and physically. Yeah. But I have that contrast of like, I worked manual labor jobs before this. I've worked like some shitty jobs, some very underpaid jobs. Yeah. And I'm just like, anytime I find myself just wanting to gripe about anything, I just have a moment like, well, hang on.
Look where I am.
This could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Like these are some luxury problems. If I'm like, it doesn't make them any less real or not valid, but it's like, if I'm on stage at Hyde Park playing to that many people with Green Day and my monitors aren't working, that's frustrating and stressful and intense. But there are worse days to have at work.
Yeah, I could be I could be not working tomorrow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this could not be it. I could be at Burlington Coat Factory tagging women's shoes like I used to do. Like and having a bad day at work doing that when I stepped on a nail on a pallet and had to go get a rabies shot, and it's like stupid shit. Like it's like, no, I remember that not being a fun day at work too. Like that was annoying.
Yeah.
So this is not a very big deal. Maybe it's just fine.
In the grand scheme of things, it's pretty all right.
Yeah. But it doesn't make it any less valid where it's like when there's a lot of moving parts and someone's dropping the ball at their job, making it much harder for other people to do their job. It's like, you gotta crack some skulls afterward.
Yeah, it's a team. Well, Branden, I know we could probably go for another hour, but that just means we got to align again sometime here.
Oh, absolutely.
Do a follow-up. Dude, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah,
Thanks
for having me.
Awesome hearing your story and your positivity and just... you're just always smiling, always upbeat. You're always nothing but a great guy to deal with.
I have my days too, but I appreciate that.
I thank you for rocking our helmets out here and enjoying that stuff too. I mean, I feel like I owe you more than a helmet because I appreciate everything you've done. So,
well, I appreciate it. We love the gear and appreciate it. We're
good
rocking.
To hear.
We put all of our friends in 509 and that's what keeps us safe and alive out here. So thank you.
Love to hear it, man. Well, yeah, we'll circle back for sure. I know the problem is I have all these things I'm thinking about, but I'm like, no, that's another hour. No, that's another hour.
Right?
So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Branden, if you guys want to check everything out, if you're not familiar with Rancid, I suggest you dive into it. Check out Branden's social. It's pretty cool following you through when you're on tour. I mean, you're always posting cool stuff. I love how you're enjoying the cities you're in.
Yeah.
You're kind of doing the tourist thing,
Oh, yeah.
You want to go walk the streets, check it out. It's fun to see what you're up to. So
cool. Thank you.
If you guys are watching on YouTube, as always, thanks for the comments. We check them all out. We love responding to them. We absolutely love when you get these 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify because it pushes it to more people so we can continue to have awesome guests like Branden here. So as at this point, I don't even know when this is coming out. I think we're either weekly right now or bi-weekly at this point, but either way, we'll see you next week or 2 weeks from now, one or the other. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.